In our industry, we cannot see the light at the end of the tunnel.
But I think the international education sector is, I would say, has not been treated too well.
So support here for the Cricos RTOs, more specifically RTOs and higher education providers, who will probably default.
You may also see some movement from New Zealand. You look at all across those sectors, a lot of times we don't recognize that it has largely been led by migrants. Possibly somebody should challenge this. I would appeal to both sets of the government, both sides of the government, to work together for this huge constituency.
Good everyone, my name is Navneet Anand from aajKal, local and global. Ashishji, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And we have got Mr. Ravi Lochan Singh, President of AAERI. Raviji, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Navneet.
The Cricos providers at the moment would be feeling a heat because not many numbers are coming from overseas. What I see is the revenues lines are being dried up because number of students already in the country are becoming less and less every day. Are you feeling the heat?
Navneet, thank you for having me on the show. Look, absolutely. I think Cricos RTOs have been hit very badly, especially in the last 3 or 4 months now. We could see the pipeline drying up over the last 12 months now. But I think for the last 3 or 4 months here, we can see no new students are coming in. Even students who are migrating from one college to the other college have started drying up now. And look, in any business, Navneet, I think it's all about light at the end of the tunnel. When we set up a business up here, it's all about tomorrow. What is going to happen in 2 months' time, in 6 months' time, in 12 months' time? In our industry, we cannot see the light at the end of the tunnel. Because of which, the infrastructure we are putting in, the professional development we are doing, trying to put up new courses there, everything is going begging. We're not doing anything new now, which is a very bad area for the industry to be in at the moment.
Raviji being on the other side of the table as a president for AAERI, there would be a number of RTOs, universities as well agents contacting you.
Yeah, Navneet, I think one of the understanding which goes missing whenever we talk to the government or talk to the lobby groups is everything is around the universities. And often universities firstly didn't have the job keepers. We could understand that. Their business model is slightly different. They also have domestic students places for them. Government comes out to their help from time to time. But what's happened to the support industry, to the international education sector? I think that's exactly where the RTOs come in, or the even private higher education providers come in, is that there is a support services sector where international education agents fit in. These are very valid business entities. When the times are good, they're given export awards. They bring in dollars to Australia. But when the times are bad, we are often forgotten. And I think it's going to last for another 1 year.
Look, absolutely. And even if we promote, for example, I think the government was talking about it. They said, look, we want to offer these courses offshore students via online method, virtual training. Students don't want to participate in that. Students don't like the online model here when they're sitting offshore. Because
normally what I say is for an international student, it's not only the formal classroom studies, it is the international exposure as well.
Totally.
I mean, online was, universities don't call it online, they call it remote. Okay, now firstly, that remote was only for a short period of time. It wasn't envisaged as something by which the student will complete the entire program of study. There are students who started last year in March. They've studied already 1 year as remote or online, and probably they'll have to finish the entire program being outside of Australia. So they might have looked at a brochure with beautiful Sydney Opera House on the cover, but they'll never get to see it.
And the visa will expire.
Yeah, but I think the international education sector is, I would say, has not been treated too well. Universities, of course, have been talking about it. They've been lobbying about it. And they might get some support from time to time. But at this point of time, I believe the higher education sector onshore, the RTO sector onshore, the onshore support services, which includes accommodation providers, it includes catering services, it includes number of providers, they've not been supported.
Look, absolutely. I think government, when he looks at support systems up here right now, it's talking about all the other industries. It's not looking at this Cricos sector up here. How can we support these RTOs? There is some funding coming in for local RTOs. There's a huge demand for domestic training here. But the Cricos RTOs who have got the capacity and who have generally been focused more on international side here, they haven't been given opportunities to go and actually do training in the local sector. For example, we have been trying to apply for smart and skill funding. Now the funding is closed, and it closes almost 6 months to 1 year ahead of time here. So if you are not thinking ahead and you're not training to domestic sector up here, to get into this domestic training, it will take you 6 months to 12 months of lead time to get into it. So during this time, you're losing all those skills that you have gathered here, right? All these trainers that you have gathered up here. And I think that's a huge loss to the industry.
So as a private RTO, crack course provider, what is the kind of assistance that you're looking up from the government side?
Look, we would like to look at, first of all, a roadmap. I think more important, as I said before, light at the end of the tunnel here. We want a roadmap from the Prime Minister, from the government here, saying, look, step number 1 is this, step number 2 is this, step number 3 is this. I understand timelines are so reliant upon whole the coronavirus system right now, what's happening in India, what's happening in China. But at least we can have a roadmap here. We can have certain milestones there, that if milestone 1 is met, milestone 2 is met, then that is what we're doing up here. That is number 1. Number 2, I think the RTOs have to be supported in terms of, for example, the job keepers now. Job keepers came to an end in October. It was well and nigh for all the industry up here who had a sudden downturn. In our industry, the downturn didn't happen last year. It will happen now. In the next 12 months' time, the downturn will come in and hit us very badly. There's no support for us. There's no support in terms of job keepers, in terms of retaining our staff members, and that's a huge gap that we will have. Same with the rent assistance. Now, rent assistance again expired in March this year. So in case we are at default with a rent here, again, there's no support from the government to help us from the legislative element there. Right? So I think there has to be some elements of support here for the crack course RTOs, more specifically RTOs and higher education providers, who will probably default on the normal requirements and obligations because of the downturn in industry here, which will start hitting us now after 12 months of the initial coronavirus problems.
You know,
Navneet, just 1 second.
Yes.
In the budget, there was a mention about support to the English language providers. I thought
That's
so,
right.
isn't it? But that didn't extend to other RTOs.
No, they're talking about English support here, but English support is more for setting up online systems so that you can deliver to offshore students.
Really?
Now,
Okay.
number 1, offshore students don't want to do English. We have tried a level best. We've spoken to a lot of people there. But all these students, especially in English and language schools, they want to be physically present. There's nothing like body language. You have your body language support there to support students, especially in English language, in ELICOS training here. So yes, it is to set up online systems up here, and yes, we can probably use that. We can set up online systems, but to what end? Because students will be unwilling to participate into it.
Yep.
And number 2, it will not contribute to the RTO at all.
I think a lot of businesses are bleeding to a level that they would die themselves. The situation, with the ongoing situation we have. Moving on to considering the quarantine is the ongoing concern and is going to hang on for probably next couple of years. We don't have an immediate solution. What we really need is the investments in large quarantine facilities.
I thought that the several states are coming out with their proposals. I think sooner than later there will be an acceptance of additional quarantine places over and above the caps currently in place. My expectation, and of course the government hasn't put out a roadmap, my own personal roadmap is, from what I expect, is before the federal elections take place, we won't really see too many new innovations. There will be some states trying to bring back small groups of international students. Those won't, in most likelihood, be new students. Mostly it will be stranded continuing students who will be brought back, but still give out some positivity.
Totally.
And I also expect that very soon, bulk of our target audience, which is the international students, will also be vaccinated. And because the vaccination is rolling out around the world, yes, there are hiccups, but it is happening. And bulk of our students is between 18 and 45 years age group, and they are largely likely to be vaccinated in the next couple of months. So if there is a move towards bringing in fully vaccinated students with some limited quarantine, and the Australian public accepts that, we could see some movement early next year. And so this is the way I look at it. For me, I personally think July next year, we should see international students coming back, Ashish. And I think that's my personal opinion, you may also see some movement from New Zealand, the international students in New Zealand who might use the bubble to come to Australia to study. So there is a little bit of a hope in that direction. That's the way I look at it. If we could have got some support from the government for the next 6 months to 9 months, the industry would still continue to live.
Hope sustains life. I always say hope sustains life. Number of international students that has gone almost to zero from overseas. So that way I could see a big void in the workforce for the aged care, hospitality and all that. I don't know how long will it take to get that gap filled up.
Well, I think if you ask me, Australia has been very lucky with the pandemic. It has done great job with the pandemic. But a lot of people don't recognize that bulk of the support provided during this period of pandemic was by international students or by new migrants. Look at the nursing staff across Australia. Look at the aged care staff. Look at the Uber drivers who have brought food across. You look at all across those sectors. A lot of times we don't recognize that it has largely been led by migrants, and you'll be surprised, largely by migrants from South Asia. So when I look at it in that context, one day we will have to recognize the role that the migrants have played in Australia in keeping Australia safe.
I fully agree.
No, I find it a little strange. You know, you saw that announcement about 20 to 40 and inclusion of hospitality and tourism for 408 visa and things like that. When a student comes to Australia, they are asked questions to indicate that they come here only for studies. And there's something called the GTI and GTE and genuine students, etc. And now suddenly the government is going out and saying, oh, we need workers, the blue-collar workers. So you quit your studies and come back and work here.
No, but they're not saying that you still have to continue doing.
But he's right. Actually, it's a huge commitment from the student.
Have a look at it. The 408 work inclusion of hospitality and tourism in 408 means a student, if they are closer to an exit point, could actually move into the work altogether. And so what I'm trying to get at here is, on one hand, the government is of the opinion that you are coming here for being a student. The other side, the government's telling them, hey, we need workers. So, hey guys, put your books aside and come and work in our restaurants. The other thing is, why isn't there so much of excitement amongst the students over this announcement? Have you seen that? I haven't come across too many students who've said, oh, great, the government's done a great job. Because you've got to understand this. There are a lot of other factors which come in. Maybe some of it I can't talk here today. But the 20 to 40 doesn't really excite them too much. What would have been ideal had the government offered 1 extra year of post-study work for students who are already on post-study work, especially those who have been here during this pandemic period. Had the government made it easier for international students to move to permanent residency if they have worked locally. These are the two things which Canada has done recently, and those are the things which would have helped our students much more than making 20 to 40 for hospitality sector.
You know, sometimes sitting in an air-conditioned room during the discussion becomes so easy for us to blame. But it could be some policies coming over that we look forward to it. Hopefully, cross fingers, they are in favor of the economy. They look after the health of the Australian citizens. They look after the industries, what we are in at the moment as well. If we have to talk about the relationship between vaccinations and border controls,
right?
What would be your opinion?
See, I mean, several. But firstly, we are faced right now with this huge issue of bringing Australians back. You've seen all the noise around it. Till yesterday, now we've got 3 Australians who have lost their life. We can't bring them and put them into quarantine. And we are talking about bringing future students and putting them into quarantine. We've got to find a solution very quickly here. And I'm telling you, this is leading to other set of problems. One is related to parents. And I think I've already mentioned this.
Leaving the last relatives back in overseas, whichever country it is. Somebody having a parent who is not a migrant to Australia, but leaving their parents in a situation like India is at the moment is another difficult situation to be in.
Have you seen the three deaths? In all the 3 deaths, it was the relationship between the child and the parent, where the child is grieving that the mother is stranded back. That's the first case. The second case, they went to look after
That's right.
death and the family situation. And in the third case too, the aging father is left behind and the child wants them back. The only reason why or I would say the main reason why Australian Indians tend to go to India or want to go to India is to look after their aging parents. And interestingly, Australian definition of immediate family doesn't include parents. And this is such a, I consider it, possibly somebody should challenge this, because the Australian definition of immediate family includes wife or husband, spouse, children, grandchildren, but doesn't include a last remaining relative.
Who is one of the parents who is left
Could
behind.
be a parent or could be a dependent brother or sister, one remaining relative. And at this point of time, the government's giving exemptions to bring immediate family back.
Who are non-residents, that's what you're talking about.
Non-residents, absolutely, because that's the reason why the citizen wants to go back and visit them and take care of them. In India, we don't have a massive aged care system like Australia. The concept with Indians live with is they take care of the parents. And here what we are left with a situation now is that one, we can't go to India because the government won't give a permission. I was reading in the Indian Link magazine, there was an article by a friend of mine called Sagar Mehrotra who's talking about for 3 months he's been applying to take care of his father, to bring him back here, or parent here from Lucknow. He didn't get permission all the 3 times, and finally he saw his father pass away on FaceTime, and he had to pay a stranger to do the last rites. Now what I'm trying to say is, we can't go, they can't come. It's now more than a year, it could last for another 1 year. Isn't there there should be some compassion that the immediate relatives definition needs to be expanded to include parents and any remaining
But
siblings.
even if it is included up here, the fact they cannot be brought back here
They can be.
because of the quarantine.
Bro, of course.
And the
Ashish, totally take your point. Right now, we can't even apply for exemption for them to come here.
Look,
And this also causes problem in terms of mental well-being of all the people who are here right now, and students more so. Now, students have not gone back for the last year and a half now. Now, these people are 17, 18, 20, 21 years old, young people, right? And they're struggling here because they cannot meet any of the family members. They cannot go back. They cannot come back. And there's a huge mental well-being problem here amongst the students, which we are not even looking at right now.
you know, we all being very, very fortunate to be living in country called Australia.
Totally.
At the same time, having gone through the pain that what we have, losing the loved ones back in the home countries that wherever we come from. I don't know when would situation be recovered, when would we get a chance to go back and meet the loved ones once again. Before I wrap up, any point that you want to suggest?
Look, from our side, it's basically all about a roadmap up here. And I think it's very important to make sure the borders are open as soon as possible, albeit in a very contained manner here. And slowly use that as an expansion point over a period of time. And I think the private sector has to be brought in. And we have to use all those extra student accommodation we have, remote areas, and all this stuff. That's very important for that to be brought in. I think that has to be held there for Cricos RTOs in terms of finding their feet and make sure they survive over the next 12 months here. Because otherwise, Australia will lose very heavily to UK, to Canada, and to other destinations. This sector is not easy to put it back in. It's like the momentum get lost totally. And it will take years and years and decades to build again to that level here of 2017, 2018. We have to take it very seriously.
Raviji, the concluding comment.
Well, Navneet, I think all of us are doing our bit in putting out the message. I've seen your interview with the Prime Minister. We've talked to different community leaders and almost everyone across the different ranks. And frankly, I don't, as a voter in Australia, who in next 8-9 months would be choosing the party to vote, I would appeal to both sets of the government, both sides of the government, to work together for this huge constituency where we are talking about international students, migration, Indian Australians, and we need to be a little bit more compassionate. I think compassionate towards the businesses who are trying to survive, and compassionate towards the family members whom we have not been able to bring back. Every single household across India belonging to the Indian Australian community is living half the time mentally in India and half the time in Australia. Our WhatsApp messages in the morning bring us fairly sad news. Almost this is the story for everyone. And I would say, Navneet, continue doing your work, put out the messages, And let's try and bring a kind of an understanding across all of us that migrants are very important for Australia. They need to be taken care of. International students are the one who become migrants eventually, and Australia needs them. And third and most important, the support services to international education are equally important as the university sector is.
Thank you so much. Me, who came to this country 26 years ago as an international student, I could understand the pain of international students as well as education providers and the educational representatives too. I look forward to get each and every Australian citizen stuck overseas, does not matter which country. On top of that, we are looking forward to have international students and tourism back to get the country on the feet once again. आज हमने की आशीष गोयल और रवि लोचन जी से बातचीत और मैं आपका नवनीत. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Navneet.
Navneet.
Thank you, Ashish.
Thank you, Ravi.
Thank you.
One-stop answer to your Australian education and visa matters. Gemco Sydney. Dream big, achieve big. Fiji Times. Be with the times.